Sirens blared as the tow truck dragged away Dr. Sanders' medical van, the oxygen tank powering Celeste's fragile lungs now silent. Karen from the HOA board stood, arms crossed, a smug grin on her face. "You should have read the rules," she sneered. Celeste's eyes went wide with panic. This was a matter of life and death. Dr. Sanders slammed his palm against the steering wheel, jaw clenched in fury. "This is an outrage. My patient needs that oxygen now." Karen's saccharine smile never wavered. "Rules are rules, doctor. You didn't have a permit to park in the fire lane." "My patient was having a medical emergency. I had no choice," he argued, chest heaving. Celeste's ragged breaths grew shallower by the second. "Hurry, please," she rasped, eyes pleading. Dr. Sanders turned to her, anguish etched on his face. "Hold on, Celeste. I'll get you help, I promise." He whirled back to Karen. "You're condemning this woman to die. Is that what you want?" Karen's lips pursed, unfazed. "I'm simply enforcing the covenants, doctor. Your van was illegally parked." She gestured to the tow truck driver. "Take it away." "No." Dr. Sanders lunged forward, but the driver grabbed his arm, holding him back. Celeste let out a strangled cry as the van's engine roared to life and began to pull away. "Someone, help!" the doctor shouted, desperation lacing his voice. But the quiet suburban street remained eerily still, save for the rumble of the tow truck. Karen watched, unmoved, as the van disappeared down the road. "You should have thought of that before breaking the rules," she said coolly. Dr. Sanders whirled on her, eyes blazing. "This is murder, you heartless." "Dr. Sanders?" a worried voice called out. A young woman in scrubs hurried towards them, clutching a medical bag. "I heard the commotion. What's happening?" Dr. Sanders grabbed her arm, urgency in his tone. "Nurse Avery, thank God. Celeste is in my van. She needs oxygen immediately." That woman had it towed. Nurse Avery's eyes widened in horror as she took in the scene. "But Celeste will." She froze, realizing the gravity of the situation. Karen raised an eyebrow. Well, if the doctor had followed the rules, this wouldn't be an issue. Nurse Avery stared at her, aghast. "How can you be so callous? A woman's life is at stake." Karen shrugged. "Rules are rules. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other matters to attend to." She turned and walked away, leaving the doctor and nurse in stunned silence. Dr. Sanders sank to his knees, head in his hands. "Oh God, Celeste, I'm so sorry." Nurse Avery placed a hand on his shoulder, tears welling in her eyes. The sound of the tow truck faded into the distance, taking with it Celeste's last hope. The tow truck rumbled down the quiet suburban street, Karen from HOA riding shotgun with a self-satisfied smirk. In the back, Celeste lay gasping, her frail body propped against the oxygen tank. "Please," she wheezed. "I can't breathe." The driver glanced at her through the rearview mirror, a flicker of concern crossing his weathered face. "Hang in there, ma'am. We'll get you situated." He pressed the gas, hoping to reach the impound lot as quickly as possible. Karen, oblivious to Celeste's suffering, examined her freshly manicured nails. This is what they get for breaking the rules. No exceptions, not even for a doctor. Celeste's vision began to blur, dark spots dancing at the edges. My inhaler," she rasped, fumbling weakly in her purse. The driver's brow furrowed. "Ma'am, you okay back there?" Karen rolled her eyes. "Oh, for heaven's sake. Just drive, will you?" With a grimace, the driver pressed on, desperate to get Celeste the help she needed. As the van rumbled over a pothole, Celeste let out a strangled cry, the inhaler slipping from her trembling fingers. "No," she gasped, watching helplessly as it rolled under the seat. Karen tesked, peering back at Celeste with disdain. Honestly, the nerve of some people. Breaking the rules, making a scene. You should have thought of that before. Her words were cut off by a sudden violent lurch as the van swerved, tires screeching. The driver fought to regain control, eyes wide with panic. What the? Karen gripped the door handle, stomach lurching. In the back, Celeste had slumped against the wall, unconscious. The driver glanced at her, then made a split-second decision. He wrenched the steering wheel, sending the van careening off the road and into a grassy embankment. The impact was jarring, throwing Karen and the driver against their seatbelts. As the van came to a shuddering halt, Karen's head whipped around, eyes narrowed with fury. "What do you think you're doing?" she shrieked. "Get this van moving now." But the driver was already fumbling with his seatbelt, his face etched with determination. "I'm getting that woman help," he growled, throwing open the door and rushing to the back. Karen watched, dumbfounded, as he gently lifted Celeste's limp form from the van. She opened her mouth to protest, but the words died on her lips as she saw the pure terror in the driver's eyes. "Call 911. He yelled, cradling Celeste against his chest and sprinting towards the nearest house. Karen sat there, stunned, as the sound of his pounding footsteps faded into the distance. She glanced down at her perfectly manicured nails, then back at the abandoned van. With a frustrated growl, she grabbed her phone and began to dial. The driver's heart pounded as he raced up the driveway, Celeste's lifeless body cradled in his arms. He reached the front door and pounded furiously, praying someone would hear. After what felt like eternity, the door swung open, revealing a startled middle-aged woman. "Oh my goodness. What?" "Please, call 911. The driver interrupted, desperation lacing his voice. "This woman needs help, now." The woman's eyes went wide as she took in Celeste's pale, gasping form. "Of course, come in, come in." She ushered them inside, fumbling for her phone. The driver gently laid Celeste on the living room couch, his hands trembling. "Hang on, sweetheart. Help is coming," he murmured, brushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead. The woman hurried back, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, my address is 412 Maple Lane. I have a woman in medical distress. Please send an ambulance immediately." She glanced anxiously at the driver. "They're on their way." He nodded, relief washing over him. "Thank you. I have to get back. There's a—" He paused, unsure how to explain the situation. The woman frowned. "Is everything all right?" "No, ma'am, it's not," the driver admitted, rubbing a hand over his face. "There's a woman from the HOA who had my van towed, with this poor lady inside. I had to get her help, no matter what." The woman's eyes widened in horror. Oh, dear Lord. How could someone be so cruel? The driver shook his head, jaw clenched. "I don't know, ma'am. But I have to go back, try to stop them from taking the van. This woman's life depends on it." "Of course, go," the woman urged. "The ambulance will be here any moment. I'll stay with her until they arrive." The driver nodded gratefully and rushed out the door, sprinting back towards the abandoned van. As he drew closer, he could see Karen pacing beside it, phone pressed to her ear. "No, I don't care what it takes. Just get that van back here now," she was shouting. The driver surged forward, determination etched on his face. "Not a chance, lady," he growled, barreling towards her. Karen whirled around, eyes widening in surprise. "You, what do you think you're—" But the driver was already past her, leaping into the van and firing up the engine. Karen lunged forward, but he peeled out, sending gravel flying. "No," she screamed, watching helplessly as the van disappeared down the road. She clenched her fists, face contorted in rage. "This isn't over, you hear me? I'll make you pay for this." The driver gripped the steering wheel, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Celeste's life hung in the balance, and he was determined to get her the help she needed, no matter the cost. Sirens wailed in the distance as the driver raced through the quiet suburban streets, the oxygen tank clanking in the back of the van. Celeste lay motionless, her labored breaths the only sign of life. "Hang on, sweetheart. Help is coming," the driver murmured, eyes fixed on the road ahead. He rounded a sharp corner, tires screeching, and spotted the flashing lights of an ambulance up ahead. Throwing the van into park, he jumped out and waved frantically. "Over here. This way, please," he shouted, drawing the attention of the emergency responders. 2 paramedics hurried over, medical bags in hand. "What happened?" one of them asked, already assessing Celeste's condition. "She couldn't breathe, her inhaler got lost," the driver explained, voice laced with urgency. "Please, you have to help her." The paramedics quickly loaded Celeste onto a gurney and rushed her into the ambulance, the driver following close behind. As they began administering oxygen, one of the paramedics turned to him, brow furrowed. "You said her inhaler got lost? Where was she before this happened?" The driver swallowed hard. "In the back of my tow truck. This woman from the HOA board had my van towed, with her inside." The paramedic's eyes widened in horror. "My God, that's unforgivable." He shook his head, jaw clenched. "We'll do everything we can, but she's in critical condition." The driver felt a surge of guilt and frustration. "I should have done more, stopped them sooner. This is all my fault." "Hey, don't blame yourself," the paramedic said firmly. "You got her help in the nick of time. That woman from the HOA is the one who should be held accountable." The driver nodded, his grip tightening on the edge of the gurney. "She will be. I'm not letting her get away with this." The ambulance sped through the streets, its siren piercing the air. Inside, Celeste's condition remained precarious, her lungs desperately struggling to draw in each breath. The paramedics worked with a sense of urgency, their brows furrowed in concentration. As they pulled up to the hospital, the driver felt a renewed sense of purpose. He would make sure that Karen from the HOA paid for her callous actions, no matter what it took. Celeste's life hung in the balance, and he was determined to see that justice was served. Dr. Sanders paced a hospital waiting room, his face etched with worry. Nurse Avery sat beside him, wringing her hands anxiously. "Where is she? What's taking so long?" The doctor muttered, glancing repeatedly at the double doors leading to the ER. Nurse Avery placed a hand on his arm, her voice soothing. "I'm sure they're doing everything they can, Dr. Sanders. Celeste is in good hands." He shook his head, frustration evident in his every movement. "I should have done more, fought harder to stop that woman. Now Celeste is." His voice broke, the weight of the unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. Before Nurse Avery could respond, the double doors swung open, and the tow truck driver strode in, face flushed with exertion. "Doctor, Nurse Avery," he called out, hurrying towards them. "I brought Celeste here. She's in the ER." Dr. Sanders gripped the man's arm, eyes filled with a desperate hope. "Thank God. How is she?" The driver's expression darkened. "Not good, I'm afraid. The paramedics said she was in critical condition when they found her." Nurse Avery let out a muffled gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. Dr. Sanders felt his knees go weak, a wave of guilt and anguish washing over him. "This is all my fault," he whispered, sinking into a nearby chair. "If I had just insisted, fought harder to keep her in the van." "No, doctor, this isn't your fault," the driver interjected firmly. "That woman from the HOA, she's the one who's responsible for this. I tried to stop them, but—" Just then, the double doors swung open again, and a harried-looking doctor in scrubs approached them. "Family of Celeste Wilkins," he called out, eyes scanning the waiting room. Dr. Sanders and Nurse Avery rushed over, the driver close behind. "We're her doctors," the nurse said, her voice trembling. "How is she?" The doctor's expression was grave. "I'm afraid Ms. Wilkins is in very critical condition. The lack of oxygen caused significant damage to her lungs and brain." He paused, his gaze shifting between the three of them. "We've stabilized her for now, but her prognosis is poor. I'm so sorry." Nurse Avery let out a strangled sob, tears streaming down her face. Dr. Sanders felt the world tilt on its axis, the weight of the doctor's words crushing him. No, this can't be happening," he muttered, clutching the edge of the counter for support. "There must be something you can do, anything." The doctor shook his head regretfully. "We're doing everything we can, but the damage is severe. I'm afraid Ms. Wilkins may not survive the night." Dr. Sanders felt a scream building in his throat, the injustice of it all consuming him. Beside him, the tow truck driver clenched his fists, his face a mask of fury. "That woman from the HOA," he growled. "She's going to pay for this. I swear it." Karen paced the length of her living room, phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care what it takes. You need to find that van and bring it back here immediately," she hissed, her carefully manicured nails digging into the palm of her hand. On the other end of the line, the tow truck dispatcher sounded frantic. "We've been searching everywhere, ma'am, but it's like the driver just vanished. I'm so sorry. But..." "Sorry?" Karen's voice rose to a shriek, her composure cracking. "Do you have any idea what's at stake here? That van had a patient inside, a critically ill patient. If anything happens to her, it'll be on your head." The dispatcher swallowed audibly. "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but..." "No, you don't understand," Karen interrupted, pacing faster. "This woman's life is in danger because of your incompetence. I want that van found, and I want it found now." Yes, ma'am. We're doing everything we can, I promise." The dispatcher's voice wavered. "But the police are also involved. And they're..." "The police?" Karen's eyes went wide with alarm. "Why are the police involved?" "The driver, he took the van back from us," the dispatcher explained, his voice barely above a whisper. "The paramedics are with the patient at the hospital, and the police are." Karen didn't wait to hear the rest. She ended the call with a furious jab of her finger, her mind racing. The police, the hospital, the tow truck driver, it was all spiraling out of her control. She sank into a chair, her manicured nails digging into the armrest. "This can't be happening," she muttered, her carefully cultivated facade crumbling. "I was just enforcing the rules like I'm supposed to. How did it all go so wrong?" Unbidden, an image of Celeste's pale, gasping face flashed through her mind, and a wave of guilt and unease washed over her. Karen shook her head, trying to push the memory away. No, this isn't my fault," she insisted, her voice wavering. "I was just doing my job, following the covenants. That driver and that doctor, they're the ones who broke the rules." But even as the words left her lips, Karen knew deep down that they rang hollow. She had chosen to prioritize the rules over a human life, and now the consequences of that decision were crashing down around her. With a shaky sigh, she rose from the chair and began pacing again, her mind whirring. She had to find a way to salvage this situation, to regain control. Failure was not an option, not when so much was at stake. Gritting her teeth, Karen strode to the front door, determination etching her features. If the police and the hospital couldn't be swayed, then she would have to take matters into her own hands. Whatever it took, she would ensure that justice was served, according to the rules, of course. Dr. Sanders paced the sterile hospital hallway, his mind racing. Beside him, Nurse Avery sat huddled in a chair, her face buried in her hands. The tow truck driver stood guard, his expression a mix of fury and despair. "We have to do something," the doctor muttered, his hands clenching and unclenching. "I can't just sit here and wait for Celeste." He broke off, the words catching in his throat. Nurse Avery looked up, her eyes red-rimmed with tears. What can we do, doctor? That woman from the HOA, she's the one who had the van towed. And the police. The driver stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. The police may not be able to do anything, but I sure as hell can. Dr. Sanders turned to him, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. What are you suggesting? The driver's gaze hardened. I'm going to make that woman pay for what she's done. She's the reason Celeste is fighting for her life right now, and I won't rest until she's held accountable. Nurse Avery's eyes widened. But what if she tries to retaliate? You could get hurt, or worse. The driver shook his head. I don't care. I've got to try, for Celeste's sake. That woman needs to know the consequences of her actions. Dr. Sanders placed a hand on the driver's shoulder, a newfound respect in his gaze. I understand your anger, and I feel it too. But we can't stoop to her level. There has to be a better way. The driver's brow furrowed in frustration. Then what do you suggest we do, doctor? Sit around and wait while Celeste's life hangs in the balance. Before Dr. Sanders could respond, the hospital doors burst open, and a frazzled-looking Karen strode in, her eyes wild. Where is she? She demanded, her gaze sweeping the hallway. Where's the patient from the tow truck? The driver stepped forward, his expression hardening. She's right here, fighting for her life, because of you. Karen's eyes narrowed, her lips twisting into a snarl. This is all your fault, you imbecile. If you had just followed the rules, none of this would have happened. The rules? The driver's voice rose, dripping with fury. You're willing to let an innocent woman die over some stupid rules? Karen's chin lifted defiantly. Those rules are in place for a reason. I was simply doing my job as a member of the HOA board. Dr. Sanders stepped between them, his eyes blazing. Your job nearly cost Celeste her life. How can you stand there and justify that? Karen's gaze flicked to him, her lips curling in disdain. I don't expect you to understand, doctor. You're too emotionally invested in this situation to see the bigger picture. The driver let out a harsh laugh. The bigger picture. The only thing I see is a heartless woman who's willing to sacrifice a human life to protect her precious rules. Karen's eyes narrowed, her fingers twitching as if she were about to strike him. You have no idea what you're talking about. I was simply. Enough. Dr. Sanders' voice rang out, commanding the attention of everyone in the hallway. We're wasting time arguing. Celeste needs our help, not our petty squabbles. The driver and Karen fell silent, their gazes locked in a silent battle of wills. Nurse Avery stepped forward, her expression pleading. Please, Karen, if you have any compassion at all, you'll help us save Celeste's life. Isn't that more important than the rules? Karen's jaw tightened, and for a moment, the others held their breath, waiting for her response. Karen's gaze swept over the faces before her, the pleading nurse, the furious driver, the desperate doctor. For a moment, she felt a twinge of something that resembled remorse, a flicker of humanity amidst the rigid adherence to the rules that had defined her life. But then her jaw tightened, and the mask of cold indifference slid back into place. I'm sorry, but the rules are the rules, she said, her voice hard and unyielding. I can't make exceptions, not even for a medical emergency. Dr. Sanders felt his heart sink, the last vestiges of hope slipping away. You're condemning Celeste to die, he said, his voice laced with anguish. Karen's lips curved into a tight-lipped smile. I'm simply upholding the covenants that we all agreed to follow. It's not my fault that you chose to break the rules. The driver surged forward, his hands clenched into fists. You heartless. Nurse Avery grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with alarm. Wait, please. There has to be something we can do, some way to convince you. Karen shook her head, her expression unmoving. I'm afraid my mind is made up. The decision has been made, and now you must face the consequences. She turned to leave, her heels clicking against the pristine hospital floor. Dr. Sanders felt a surge of desperation, a last-ditch effort to save Celeste's life. "Wait," he called out, his voice echoing through the hallway. Karen paused, turning back with a raised eyebrow. "If you won't help us," the doctor said, his gaze unwavering, "then I'm going to the media. I'm going to expose what you've done, how your rigid adherence to the rules has cost an innocent woman her life." Karen's eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her features. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "Try me," Dr. Sanders said, his voice cold and unyielding. "This isn't just about Celeste anymore. It's about the callousness and lack of compassion that you've shown, the way you've put your own petty rules above the sanctity of human life." For a moment, the two of them stared at each other, the air thick with tension. Then, with a frustrated sigh, Karen reached into her purse and pulled out a set of keys. "Fine," she spat, tossing them to the driver. "Take the van, and get that woman the help she needs. But mark my words, this isn't over." Dr. Sanders caught the keys, a triumphant smile crossing his lips. "It's over, Karen. Your reign of tyranny ends here." The driver wasted no time, snatching up the keys and sprinting towards the hospital exit. Nurse Avery followed close behind, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. As they disappeared around the corner, Karen watched them go, her face a mask of pure fury. But deep down, she knew that her precious rules had been shattered, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Justice, it seemed, had finally been served.